Good evening, everyone. Gave you a little poignant pause there to bring you in. So grateful to have you all here tonight for another episode of Be Heal Web Show as we're talking about and in our series, The Power of Vulnerability. I am your host, Camille R. Perry, and I'm so excited. This series is already off to a phenomenal start. Last week, we had Dr. Darnell Bain, former NFL player, full time father, husband, and coach, as well as mentor and faculty, tenured faculty. Tonight, we are talking to Mr. Jonathan Wright. And I am so excited to have him on tonight. And because, it's you when you meet some amazing people in life, you just have to stop and say, wait, you're super dope. I want to learn more about you. So I got a chance to meet Jonathan through one of my previous guests, Donnie Sykes, who we had on last year's Power of Vulnerability. And Jonathan, let me tell you a little bit about him. He's a HBCU graduate from Fisk University in the great state of Tennessee. So not only is he an HBCU grad, but he has over 10 plus years in the fashion industry, as well as, known as a father, a friend. He is extremely comical. We had a great time over at Donnie's video shoot, got a chance to connect and plan. But he also started a nonprofit organization called Moves and Grooves, also in Nashville, Tennessee. So this man is about his business. If you're into denim like I am, he does have his own fashion company called Justice Denim. And so I know right now they're doing like something really special and significant for the queen herself, Miss Janet Jackson, the queen of pop. However, you want to check them out. So we're going to drop links in throughout tonight. But that's just my little tea on our guest on tonight. But I'm going to bring him in so you get to see him. You'll get to hear from him. And he's going to talk about his evolution, his life story, evolution from fatherhood, but from being the student to the teacher, then back to the student. So let's go ahead and bring him in. And remember, you all, let's get in these comments. If you're on Facebook, share this. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Welcome. Hit subscribe so you don't miss not one single episode of Be Heal Web Show. Let's go ahead and begin. Jonathan, hey friend.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. It's good to see you. You're looking good.
Listen, I'm trying my best, to do what I do.
Hey, well, you looking good while you doing it,
Thank you. I'm honored to have you on here. It's great that you said yes. I felt led to include you for this Power of Vulnerability series. Donnie's already in the comment. That's right. We were looking for you, Donnie. You better be here. Absolutely. Else we coming for you, friend. But so great to have you and all those that are tuning in thus far. And so when I asked you, what would be your topic? And, what would your life story look like? You stated your evolution in fatherhood. But before we go there,
Okay.
I just want to know what made you want to be vulnerable in this space? What brings you to this space and saying, I want to share my story today?
Well, the topic was vulnerability, and that is my most vulnerable space.
Okay.
That's where I've had my highest highs, my lowest lows. That's where I've learned the most about not only myself, but just what it is to be a human being. Not what it is to be a father, but what it is to be a human being. How to be honest, how to have integrity, how to lead, how to teach, how to nurture, how to provide, like all of those things. Because if you start there with those key elements in life, then that's how you can strive to be and hopefully succeed in being a decent human being.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
agree with that.
I
Um,
appreciate
you know, fatherhood, and I'm just a woman, so from a woman and motherhood perspective, we know our piece. But I'm always enthralled in hearing from men, especially when they speak about fatherhood, their family. So I'm getting ready to deep dive. But first, I want to commend you on being the best promoter of
it.
the website. Like, when I get tagged in the video, I was like, "Oh, this episode is going to be amazing." So
Well,
I love that. I love the support. And so this is where I want you to share your story. So we talked briefly when we were over at Donnie's shoot, and you kind of shared. We kind of connected with our children facing crisis. Okay, so tell me about your journey in fatherhood. You were, single man, enjoying your life, and then what did how did we get from just Jonathan to then Jonathan the father?
so I was a single guy in college, working full time, and going to school,
Mhm.
and then tried to have like a little dating situation going on. And actually, so I met this woman, and she was an amazing woman, and she had two beautiful girls, and we immediately connected, and we started dating, and then we started dating seriously, and then seriously went into marriage, and
Oh,
we got married, and we had our son together.
mhm.
So that's how I went from single to being a father.
Okay.
And then we stayed together for a few years or so. And then we separated.
Mhm.
And we separated. And then through the separation, which I thought at the time was going okay, she disappeared.
Oh, wow.
And so once we were in the process of that happening, my son was actually, it's going to sound dramatic and it's not, but my son was actually dropped off at my doorstep and was like, we
Mhm.
don't know where his mom is. We know that you're his dad, you know what's going on. And so I was like, okay. And from that day forward, it was just he and I figuring things out. At that point, he was 3 years old. He was three.
Okay.
Once we realized that, we found out that, oh, okay, well, she's not injured or dead. We let that be whatever it was. But then he and I just tried to figure out how we were going to maneuver this relationship,
Yeah.
you know. And so at that point in time, I was still in Nashville, Tennessee. And I stayed there for, he was three. So by the time he started kindergarten,
Okay.
no, he did kindergarten there. When he started first grade, moved back to California because
Okay.
that whole entire time from three to I think it was 6 or 7,
Mhm.
you know, I had a community of people that helped me,
Yeah.
you know, that they really stood by me. You know, I would work at night, so I had a friend who had a daycare, 24-hour daycare, so she would babysit him at night. But then she was also family and friendly enough to say, well, you want to do something this weekend or you want to do something on your off day, we'll keep him, you know, because he became a part of their family. Because one thing about Jonathan, his name is Jonathan as well, everybody loved him.
Okay.
You know, you loved him,
Mhm.
but he could cause havoc, but you still loved him. Havoc included. So made my way back to California because
Mhm.
family was like, yeah, come home so we can support you, so we could be there for you and all that. And got back to California. And from that point, it just became it became very touch and go because he had challenges.
Okay.
And so he had challenges, and I believe that there was trauma
Mhm.
due to the
Yeah.
separation
Yeah.
or abandonment, as I
That,
guess how it
yeah,
would
that,
be
that was the
set
word
up.
Was
It
looking
would be
for.
set up in his mind. Well, not, it was set up in his mind, his psyche, and his spirit as like the abandonment and the abandonment issues. And um, therefore, from first grade all the way till the end, it just every year
Mm,
things progressively got worse.
okay.
And what I mean by worse is that it started off with just being issues or problems
Mm-hmm.
that it wasn't constant, but
Mm-hmm.
like things would come up and it would be like mind blowing, and then things would settle down, and then you think everything is okay, and then
Yeah.
something kind of pops up. But what does that sound like? That sounds like raising a child.
Right.
But
That's
when I say it got worse, is that like every year it was kind of like some of the things that would happen, the underlining statement and conversation that I'm having with a 7-year-old, 8-year old, 9-year old, 10,
yeah.
12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year old,
Yeah.
even till um, the last conversation that I had with him, I was always saying this key thing, which is if you don't stop what you're doing or if you don't get a hold on some of these behaviors, it's going to be out of my hands.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to save you. I'm not going to be able to rescue you. I'm not going to be able to fix it,
Mm-hmm.
because once you're in the hands of the law, or once you do these kind of things with, you know, you get caught in this type of situation and you don't have this bubble of the
Yeah.
school or this bubble of your parents to
Yeah.
protect you, it's going to be bad. And there's not going to be anything that I can do about it, because I think the saving grace was always I can do these things, and between my grandmother and my father, speaking as if I'm him, they're going to take care of it,
Right. Right.
which is what always happened,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So that's basically what that journey was like. There were good and there were bad times, but it was just it was very challenging. It was very challenging because when I speak about vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
why this is so vulnerable for me is because at that point, when he's 3, I'm really trying to figure out not just how to raise a
Mm-hmm.
child, but how to raise one on my own by myself, because that wasn't a part of the plan.
Right.
Even when we separated, it wasn't a part of the plan. We were going to do this together,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So doing it all by myself, but then also trying to figure out how to have a life
Mm-hmm.
and a dream
Mm-hmm.
and a career of
Mm-hmm.
my own,
Right. Right.
you know. And so I found myself a lot of times like not knowing what the hell to do, not knowing what to say, not knowing what to do, and just, you know, trying to figure everything out, because I was dealing with some things that a lot of people didn't get and a lot of people didn't understand.
Yeah.
And I love Black people, but their solution was always, I don't know if I can cut. Are you whooping his ass? Like,
No, go.
are
This
you
is
beating?
vulnerability. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Be free.
yeah. Are you? And trust me, I was, to the point
Mhm.
where I had to stop, because I realized is that
It
it's
wasn't
not
working.
working. It's
Yeah.
not. Once I realized that that this is not working, I was like, I have to stop doing this, because now what this is doing, this is that it's really making it so that I can never have a real true relationship with him.
Yeah.
Was not trying to be his friend,
Right.
but I still wanted to be in relationship with my son, because like it was just making him mean and making him mad and then making him resent and hate me.
Yeah.
So then I said, okay, I got to figure something else out. What I skipped over is what I want a lot of people to understand, that even through all of this,
Mm-hmm.
from first grade, was always in therapy and counseling,
Wow.
medication,
Mm.
psychiatrist, like all of those type of things, boot camp,
Mm.
you know, outreach programs. At one point in time, we were going to, he had therapy session, I had a therapy session, we had family therapy, and then
Yeah.
people would come to the house once a week.
Yeah.
And those same people, some of them would be at the school, checking in on them, checking up on them, and all that kind of stuff.
So let me ask you this. You know,
Hmm.
he bore your name. You know, you had your name.
Right.
Along the parenting journey, oftentimes we'll see a reflection of ourselves in our children. Looking at it, what did you notice that he took from you, or was a trait that you generously, unknowingly passed down to him?
He looked just like me. He would even say, he was like, we look alike, but we act nothing alike. And a lot of people would be like, no, you're wrong, because when I was coming up, I was
Hmm.
in trouble a lot, but it
Hmm.
was a different type of trouble. It
Yeah.
was a different type of trouble. My thing was is I was just always challenging authority. And coming up in the 80s and the 90s, that was something that you did not do. I was having a conversation with my sister the other day, not the other day, but maybe a couple of weeks ago. And basically, how I was then
Hmm.
would be 100% acceptable in a classroom today and
Okay.
would be the norm.
Okay.
Coming up in Aiden, you did not have a voice. You did not
Correct.
have, you were to come in,
Sit down. Yeah.
learn, sit down, do what was supposed to be done, whether it was right or whether it was wrong. And I would question things. I would question things all the time. Well, why is this? And why can't we do this? And why can't we do that? And then they took that as disrespect. So
Mhm.
then there was, confrontation. Then there would be confrontation. And so this is where it would always get me into trouble, is that I didn't really back down from confrontation,
Okay.
whether it was an adult and or not. And the thing about it is, then even now, how
Mhm.
I am and how I've always been, and I think always will be, is I will not argue with anybody unless I know I'm right. If
Okay.
I don't know that I'm right, I'm going to shut up.
Okay.
If I know that I'm see, I have somebody that was in a classroom
Like,
with
I
me
like
that
Tiffany
said,
just made it very
you
clear.
are a badass and stuff.
Tiffany made
What's
it
up, Tiffany? I would get kicked out of that classroom. I would, all kind of things. But it was, testing
very.
boundaries and being, getting in trouble. But I did have boundaries and I
Mhm.
did have limits. And there were just certain things that I just wouldn't do and I wouldn't say. And he kind of would take things a step further,
Okay. You
you
know.
know. And what I mean by that is that it was kind of things like things that I did, I could get in trouble, I could get suspended or anything like. But things that he would do, it would be like, if you weren't in this collective bubble
Mhm.
and of underage, you would be arrested.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know that you would be arrested for doing what you did.
But see, I think that's one of the things that I love. Like, I look at, I'm a lot like my dad. I look like him, but I have a lot of my mom's tendencies the older I get. But my dad would always get so frustrated with me. But I'm thinking like, bruh, where do
We're
you
the
think
same person.
like, sir, you know? But when I look at my nieces, and one of my nieces, they call her Millie Jr. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, I wasn't that bad. Like, I had limitations, I was refined, but the reality is that, like the Bible says, they become wiser but weaker, right? Each generation is wiser but weaker in some particular area or facet or another. And so, your son was given, technology early on, like we were. We weren't given technology. We had to earn our Game Boy. We had to earn the internet. We had, they came out with all these things. They got a chance to have all this accessibility, social media. So I'm sure that caused some additional pressure in the home too.
Yeah, and
Trying to keep up.
our situations were similar. So basically, I guess if we're going to dive into this,
Mhm.
he was abandoned by his mother and I was abandoned by my father.
Oh, okay.
Now, the reason why I always would say like these things, you know, never really connected to me until you just kind of like break it down and say, well, it is what it is.
Mhm.
Because I came from a place to where, and the reason why in the beginning I didn't really take his abandonment issue seriously, which is
Mm,
my fault. I'm going to admit all my faults. And I wasn't really sensitive to it because I came from a place to where a lot of people did not have their mother and their father.
yeah.
I knew people that lived with their aunts and uncles or their grandmother or their grandparents or were in foster care or in group homes. I went to all of that. I didn't have my dad, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I did have my mom, and I did have a very, very, very close relationship with my mom. And he did in the beginning, and then all of a sudden it was just gone.
Yeah.
And so you can never say, well, I guess, not trying to compare, but trying to find understanding in
Right.
that, which is what I'm doing now, and which I probably was trying to do, later on. But in the beginning, I did not have any type of sensitivity towards that, because I looked at it as that, there shouldn't be nothing wrong with you. Like this, you know what I'm saying? There shouldn't be any issue. There shouldn't be any problem, which is a big mistake on my part. Big
Yeah.
mistake on my part, you
But
know.
I think a couple of things. Hindsight is going to always be 2020, right? But to be fair, it's hard to be empathetic in a situation where you feel like, but you have what I didn't have.
Right.
And then, but on to your son and anyone else who might, be in the same way, you have something that I didn't have, and that was the mom portion. And then one of the things that you already hit on, and I just wanted to, I'm glad that we touched on it, the abandonment. Abandonment is a real significant pain that millions of people never truly heal from. They never truly process it. It's still like it's still a sting. It's still a scab, an open wound. It's still a problem. And you know, I for the listeners who are tuning in tonight, those who don't know you, you're referring to your son in past tense. There's the conversation is past tense. Can you share what transpired so they can be aware of what's happened, what has happened?
Right. So, I'm trying to think where to start. I guess I'll pick up where we left off. I'll just say that basically, as I stated, there was a troubled life.
Yeah.
There was trouble going on there, like in trouble in school and all that kind of stuff. And I'll also go back to saying that with that, the abandonment issue, I was always trying to overcompensate and
Mhm.
make up for what he had lost. So
Yeah.
therefore, there started to become issues between the two of us, because I'm working double time, overtime
Yeah.
here, you know what I'm saying, in every way, from a financial standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, from a mental standpoint, to try to
Mhm.
give you what I know you
Mhm.
did not have.
Yeah.
Not knowing that I can be a good person, I could be a good dad, I could do it, but I'm never going to be able to fulfill that void.
That
So
exactly.
in trying to do that, I'm driving myself crazy, and then looking at him like he's crazy, because I'm like, like what's the, part of also the reason of moving back to California was so that he could have somewhat of instead of me inserting at that time different women into his life,
Right.
I wanted to have
Consistency.
basically, I wanted my mother. My
Yeah.
mother was that, because she's the most nurturing, caring, kind, sweet, giving person, and she doted on him and spoiled him. But even all that she did for him, all that I was trying to do, we could not replace his mom.
Ever. Yeah.
And he did not have the language to say
Mm.
that to us. So it was the behavior that was
Yeah.
continuously saying that I don't give a damn what y'all doing.
Right.
Y'all are not her. You can't be her. Whatever you give me, whatever you do for me, however you are there for me, you can't replace her. And I'm pissed about it, and I'm mad about it. So all these things were like, but I'm not looking at it as that's what it is. I'm looking at it as this. why are you always acting up? Like, what's the problem?
Like
You know,
ungratefulness, you know.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. It's like what is going on? So fast forwarding to like I said, every year
yeah.
things just like seem to get worse. And it wasn't until 2015
Mhm.
that he started using drugs. Started off like experimenting with marijuana.
Okay.
And that's when everything took a turn for the worse.
Mm.
He started smoking weed, and after smoking weed, um, that was when he started running away from home for days and weeks at a time.
Mm. Wow.
So, and at that point, when the running away came into place, it went from weed to other things.
Right.
And so then that started the spiral, which then landed him into juvenile hall, which
Mhm.
then put him in this in and out of juvenile hall for about 2 years.
Okay.
And then when he finally gets released on his 18th birthday,
Mm.
he doesn't make it to his 19th birthday.
Wow.
He died of an accidental overdose. So the pain that he had been dealing with since the age, well, I don't want to put it on that, just the pain that he had been dealing with for pretty much the majority of his life.
Right.
He just wanted to get rid of it, because I know that that's what the drugs were about. He
Yeah.
wanted to be done with that. He wanted to, he didn't want to be in pain anymore,
Mhm.
because a lot of people, many people outside of just people that have never heard me say this, and a lot of people may not like it because they won't be able to understand it, but we're being honest and we're telling the truth and we're being vulnerable, but it is the truth. I have to say it in the right way, but you're a parent, you
Mhm.
love your children, right?
Yes.
And after everything was said and done, I got to a place where I was happy that that had happened. Not in the way that it happened,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I knew that my son was miserable and I knew that he was in pain.
Right.
And if this is what it takes for him to be free of that,
Hmm.
and this is what it takes for him to finally be at peace,
Right.
then I'm going to be okay with that. And
Yeah.
I'm going to be happy for him,
Yeah.
because now all of that is over and done. All of the questioning, all of the doubting, all of the anger, all of the frustration, all of the pain, it's over and done with now.
Yeah.
You know, we
Yeah.
all we you know, being an active parent, you
Hmm.
have these hopes and these dreams. So like all of my family and my friends and myself and everybody was so broke down when they heard about it, because if you knew the things that he was going through, everybody in the back of their mind was like, but he's going to come through this.
Right.
And this is going to be a part of a story that he's going to tell as he goes. And we all want that. I wanted that.
Yeah.
But when I realized that that wasn't going to happen, it says, okay, so let's be realistic here. So
Yeah.
in the midst of it, did I want him to endure another year, another week, or another month of that? No, what we wanted was in maybe that year or that month or that year for things to turn around. But the
Yeah.
shit was not going to turn around.
Right.
So it was only going to get worse, because if you remember what I said in the beginning,
Mhm.
every year
It got worse
it
progressively.
got worse, it got worse, and it got worse, and it got worse. So
You know.
I can sit here and say I'm happy
Right.
that a couple of months before his 19th birthday,
Mhm.
God did not give him an opportunity to experience it getting worse.
Worse. Okay, I'm gonna park right here for a minute if you don't
Okay.
mind. I'm putting on my hazards. Throwing up the e-brake. because that's huge. Um, Suffering is a real struggle for all of us. No one likes suffering. No one likes pain. No one, I don't care how many tattoos someone or they, oh, I have a strong pain tolerance. This kind of pain, this kind of suffering is not enjoyable. And addictions is just as much of a disease, a deadly disease as cancer and anything else that we deal with. And I can empathize with you with the situation I'm currently dealing with my goddaughter, where there's been times where I'm like, God, I just don't want her to suffer anymore.
Right.
But no one wants to bury their child. It's not natural order to bury your child. Normally, the children are supposed to bury the parent.
Right.
But clearly, what I love what you said, God didn't allow him to see worse because we don't know what could have happened. Like you stated, it was an accidental overdose. He probably went in with intentions of just getting high, going back home and hanging out with dad and granny and calling it a day. And we wouldn't know what would happen the next month, the next day, the next year, whatever. And that's where I'm like, the sovereignty of God, even in this situation, allowing your son, you know, even his life, his legacy, even though we feel like it was a short time, but here we are, and you're able to help someone else now. I'm sure you have a testimony where you can help someone maybe identify the signs of what can happen when issues aren't being dealt with, or how to have empathy to a parent who is dealing with this same type of challenge, or mental health awareness. I'm sure this has sparked something in you where you're able to give back and share.
Yeah. To be honest with you, so going back to the title of what we were speaking of is that I started out in my mind
Mm-hmm.
being, well, in every fight, my mind, my body, my soul, of being his father and being his teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to this point to where he was the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He was teaching me, in a roundabout way of, and especially even in his passing, it did the most teaching because it was teaching me to where I needed to do exactly, I needed to start being vulnerable. I
Yeah.
needed to start being honest with myself. I needed to start telling the truth 100% because what I realized is that, you know, I'm not where I want to be and where I need to be
Mm-hmm.
because of that within itself. Not telling the truth, not being honest, blocking blessings,
Mm-hmm.
not being vulnerable and saying exactly what I need or what I want for whatever reason. Because there was a lot of reasons why I wasn't saying what I needed or what I wanted, because I didn't want people to think that I didn't have something, or I didn't want people to think that I didn't have it all together, or I didn't want people to think that I didn't know what I was doing. So a lot of times you don't ask for help because you don't want people to think, you think there's something wrong with being ignorant. At this point in time, I know nothing about I know nothing
No,
about
nothing.
what you're
Everything.
speaking of or what you're talking about, but let me sit here like a sponge and soak up all this knowledge and soak up all this wisdom.
Yeah.
Instead, I was so arrogant to
Mm-hmm.
where there were times where I would I would act like I knew what was going on. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? Instead of sitting there, humbling myself
Mm-hmm.
and being a student. And that came with my relationship with him, because I was the dad. I should have the answers to everything instead of sometimes just sitting down and listening to him. Sometimes part of the issue is that I'm going to tell him what the problem is,
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
because once I figure it out in my mind what the problem is, then I'm going to tell you how to fix it
Yeah.
and solve it because I have the solution.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of maybe humbling myself, being vulnerable, and saying, like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's wrong. Can you tell me?
Yeah.
Can you tell me? And then we come up with a solution together.
Yeah.
And then let's work this out and let's work through this. That and a lot of that came from I had to completely and totally change my way of what I thought parenting was.
Yes.
Because
Mhm.
regardless, mistakes were made, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, there was mistakes made by my mother in parenting me.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's good.
But I would not own up to that, because if anybody knows me,
You gonna protect
I
your mom.
love her. Between look, that boy and my mom, I love them more than anything in the world. And my mom, to me, she could do no wrong because she was just so selfless.
Mhm.
But there was a lot of things that she didn't know. So there was a lot of mistakes that she made. And so, but instead of me being honest enough to like say that,
Mhm.
I put her on this pedestal and made her this saint and made her this, the knows all the ends, and so therefore I kept repeating mistakes with my parenting.
Yeah. Okay. So many things, and we do have a question. So many
I
things.
told you, don't let me go on it.
No, no, this is
Don't
good.
let me loose.
But this
Cause
is
I
this
was,
is
yeah.
this is what I live for. This is why I know God gave me this platform to do this, because I'm talking to complete strangers a lot of times, right? And I'm talking to some familiar faces, some friends and family. But the reality, there's stories that I'm learning for the first time talking to you all. And there's things that people who probably been knowing you for a long time didn't know you felt that way. Vulnerability is real. It is. I love what Nicole was saying, is that vulnerability brings change and progress. That is the point of Be Healed, is for us to change the behavior. First of all, recognize the behavior, change the behavior so we can change our results. We have to be able to admit, the scripture says for us to confess our sins, right? And God is faithful and just to forgive us and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. I love the Lord, so I'm always going to talk about him. But the reality is, my question that I've had for you: did you ever talk to your son about your abandonment issues with your dad, from a place of like, this is still hurting me as a grown man being your father, that I don't have a father to go to? Did you
So
all ever have
yes,
that conversation?
yes and no.
Okay.
And why I say yes and no is because when I had those, yes, I had conversations with him about me not having my father in my life. But no, to the second part is that it did not come, those conversations were, this is the story.
You got it.
The second part that he did not get was the vulnerability,
Mm,
was the, as a grown man this still affects me, as a grown man this still hurts me, or this is what it did to me, or this is what it done. So there wasn't, I did not add the relatability component in
okay.
there. It was, this is what happened to me when I was a kid, but I don't care, it doesn't bother me, it's not an
Right.
issue, it's not a problem, because I had not humbled myself at
Whew.
that point. I had not humbled myself to what? Be honest,
Yeah.
have integrity, and tell the truth. I still had the wall up. I still
Mhm.
had the mask up
Yeah.
when it came to a lot of things,
Mhm.
So that's why, again, like him turning into the teacher, making me the student
Yeah.
at certain times, like really making me realize is that, a lot of the things that you need me to do or you want me to do,
Mhm.
you need to be doing them yourself.
Yeah. Yes. That mirror, looking in the mirror. Yeah.
Yeah.
Henrietta, my sister Henrietta is asking, how do you help young boys with abandonment issues now? Like, how could you help maybe a single mom, a single dad who's raising their children, who are dealing with abandonment? What advice outside of some of the nuggets you've been dropping, or maybe packaged all together, what would you say?
So this is a journey.
Hmm.
And I'm in the beginning stages of that part of the journey, because part of my issue, why it took me so long to do this with anyone. You're the first person that I've had this type of open forum, yes, conversation with. Usually it's in very private places with with certain specific people. um I don't I wasn't able to help him
Mm,
because we all know what the outcome was.
right.
So there's no happy ending here.
Mm-hmm.
So the journey that I'm currently on is trying to figure out the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Because if I would have been able to help him with his issues, then it might have turned out a little different. Now I'm not carrying the weight of what
Okay.
happened on myself. Not doing that, because once he passed away, I did go through grief therapy and then continued in individual therapy after that. So I'm not doing that, but I'm just being honest in saying that how do you help young boys? I think one of the things is that basically, I kind of said it earlier, is that being vulnerable with them,
Mm-hmm.
allowing yourself as a man to relate to a young boy with abandonment issues. And then I guess maybe I was going to say, like, try to get them into therapy or
Yeah.
counseling. But see, again, in my situation, my son had all that.
Right. Mm, yeah.
But also, all of those things work and all of those things are beneficial and all of things are good. And you can do all of those things. And it doesn't mean that it will have the same outcome that happened,
Correct.
with mine. But so all of those things are helpful. So I guess I can say, how do you help boys with abandonment issues? I guess as whether you are a grown up, a parent, or anything, you come across any type of child or any type of young man who's been abandoned, is just as much as you possibly can,
Mm-hmm.
speak over them in a very positive way and lift them up as
Yeah.
much as you possibly can, because what comes with abandonment issues is somebody being very, very insecure
Yes.
because they're lacking something. So do as much as you can to let them know that they're not enough. I mean, that they are, that they are enough, that they are more than
Yeah.
enough, and that the things that they say and the things that they do, that it has meaning and that
Mhm.
it has value.
Mhm.
Um, because I know that I did that at times, but I did more of, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And why aren't you doing that?
Mhm.
And what is wrong, and what is this, and what is that, and just being more positive.
Yeah.
And I really did feel, I got to a point in his therapy journey where I just sat down with somebody and I said, I'm tired of policing him. Can I
Yeah.
get to a point where I can be his dad?
Mhm.
Not trying to be his friend, but where I can be his dad and I can have a relationship with him. Because that was, well, what is your goal? What do you want to accomplish? I want to get to a point where I'm not policing him, where I'm not always, because I felt like, and he didn't have to deal with any of this stuff that we see in the news
Thank
now.
you. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I was always trying to prevent that from happening.
Mhm.
I was
Right.
always trying to prevent, him being a loose cannon and saying the wrong thing in the wrong situation to a cop and then them killing him,
Mhm.
or him being injured in that type of situation. So I was always, you can't do this and you can't do that, and you're not doing this, and no, don't do this, do this, and that. Just be more positive,
Yeah.
just be more loving, be
Mhm.
more caring. Also, I used to kind of like set it up in my head. My mom is the loving and the caring one. Therefore, I need to be the disciplinarian.
Yeah.
But he needed that love from me as well,
Yeah.
especially having abandonment issues. You need as much of it as there's just never too much.
Yeah. There's
Never
never
too much love, never
a
too much
yeah.
positivity,
Yeah.
you know.
And Jonathan, one of the things that sticks out to me, just even going back to Henrietta's question, your statement is so true. Therapy, prayer, family ties, all these things, medication and reinforcement trips and all this stuff, they're all valuable. But we don't know the end of a thing. We don't know we cannot budget for someone else. All we can do is the best with what it is that we have. Give as much as we can and always
Right.
remain remain open to not only the feedback from the children. One of the things that I love that my parents instilled in us, anybody could call a family meeting. Now granted, Pastor Kermit gonna finish the family meeting. It was a democracy to a point, right? But allowing us to be able to communicate and share what was going on. So to answer and to piggyback onto your answer to Henrietta, the vulnerability, the abounding in love, the compassion, and then being still enough to admit I don't have the answer. And I think to myself how I would have appreciated hearing more at a younger age when my parents didn't know something versus them feeling on demand that they had to produce something.
Right.
Because I find myself as a mom, as a godmom, as an advocate for my children, I'm telling them I don't know. And the freedom in that, because then we get to learn and grow together. So, Henrietta, and to any of the viewers listening, never feel that you have to have the answer because we are fallible, finite, and human. We won't know the answer. God knows. So ask Him, Lord, show me how,
Right.
and position yourself to receive. Would
And
be my
that's really, really good because I would kill myself before I admit that I didn't know the answer to something. Before like, and I would also like stress myself out because they would call me and they would call me and say, well, this is going on and that was going, and so my whole thing was on the whole ride over to whatever I'm brainstorming, trying to figure out what is my solution, what is my answer going to be,
yeah.
what and never walking into a space as a black man
Mhm.
saying, I don't know what to do.
Right.
I don't know what's going, like, and so a lot of times in doing that, not being vulnerable or not having the humility to do that.
Mhm.
Well, let me go back. Let me say this. You end up making a bad choice or a bad decision.
Mhm.
And three things come into part when you make a bad choice and a bad decision. It usually comes from um, ignorance, like not knowing any better, and fear,
Mhm.
being scared and
Mhm.
afraid, and then not being honest, dishonesty.
Mhm.
You put those three things into making a choice or a decision, and 9 times out of 10, that choice or that decision is not going to work out great for you or anybody else involved.
Right. Yeah. And
So yeah,
and
so that's really good. That's really good. Is and it's okay. That's another thing. Is like I think, you know, it's okay to not have it all together.
mhm.
It's okay to not know whether you're coming or going sometimes.
Yes.
Because when you're honest enough to admit that and you sit down and shut up, you might learn something.
Oh yeah.
But if you still keep moving forward with the attitude of I got this,
Mhm.
I know what I know when you don't know,
Mhm.
then you continue. Now you're like a bulldozer making bad choices and decisions.
And you know what they say when people are drowning? You have to almost knock the person out that's drowning so you could rescue them because while they're drowning, they're
Right.
fighting, trying to not drown.
Hmm.
And all of us are drowning in something.
Right.
And we have to, again, I'm always going to go back to there's so many scripture that pops in my mind. I always go to this because, we're human and we're always trying to race to the finish. But we see in scripture, be still, fear not, trust, have faith, right? And he just be like quick one liners, and you'd be like, How? Right?
Right.
I'll, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. It's a reason why God tells us, trust me, you don't know what I know. You know what I mean? Like, so don't try to do my job, and that's one of the things that I believe that parenting is to show us we don't have it all together. I think parenting is probably the most humbling journey outside of
Okay.
marriage that anyone will ever walk through, because you're now from conception to delivery to development. This life is changing your life, the way you see things, the way you understand things that you thought were, probably weed wasn't a problem for you probably growing up, because you saw folks get high off weed and everything was they just had the munchies, they went to sleep, it was cool. But weed nowadays is laced with stuff that leads to other things, and it becomes a problem. So now our lenses become different, because when we raise our children, we don't want our children to go on drugs. We don't want our children to be in gangs. We don't want all these things that we used to think was okay, almost cool, or aspire to when we were younger is not okay when we're raising a new life. So to me, I feel like parenting, maybe I'm just having a moment for myself, but parenting has exposed to me not only the things that I used to think were okay are no longer okay. I'm now seeing the implications of what those decisions, if I would have made that choice, how that could have really impacted going further. Did I go too far? Okay, let me
No,
come.
no, no, not too far. I don't know you when you were when you're saying something popped into my head, and anybody that knows me knows that I don't drink, I don't smoke, like I don't do anything. So
Oh,
as soon as I found, and probably 2 years prior to, he was introduced to marijuana, and he tried it, and he was like, I'm not interested.
mm-hmm.
But then this second time, it was like he got a hold of it, and then that's when everything just kind of like went out the window.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will say is, when that happened, since I don't know anything about it, I took him immediately to Narcotics Anonymous. We started going to those meetings, and I think that he was meetinged out, meeting and therapy and counseling out, because I'm always like looking for a solution. If there's a problem, we got to find the solution. Because one thing that was always very present with me when it came to parenting
Mm-hmm.
was that you are supposed to guide them, you are supposed to lead them, and you are supposed to always catch them if and when they fall.
Right.
And but going back to the whole weed thing and the drug thing is, some people can do weed and they
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily have an issue or a problem, and then some people, it spirals, it, like they call it, the gateway, it
Right.
turns into other things. And
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that that's usually when there's a void.
Yeah.
And then you start using, sometimes it's not weed, sometimes it's sex,
Correct.
sometimes it's alcohol, sometimes it's drugs,
Yeah.
sometimes it's whatever,
Right.
it's whatever you, it's like there's a void in you that you're trying to fill,
Mm-hmm.
and you are just using whatever it is
Yeah.
to numb it,
Mm-hmm.
to whether, like I said, what some people is like that, they're like that with sex. Some people's like is whatever you use, whatever you can that will take your mind off of that pain, or take your mind off of that, whether it's momentarily or
Mm-hmm.
not. And so there was a void there, and with that void being there, it just never, it never got to a place where it could be healed.
Yeah.
And with that being said, I am grateful and thankful that it finally got to a place where it didn't have to get worse,
Yeah. Yeah.
where it plateaued, and it was like, okay, enough is enough.
Yeah.
and now you can have peace,
Yeah.
and now you don't have to worry, and now you don't have to be afraid. And I'm, since we're being honest and telling the truth, just to give a clear picture, because there are people that are on here right now that are family and that are friends, but they don't know what I'm getting ready to say. But we're just going to lay it out there. We're going to lay it out there because you said something because you didn't know. And I'm not necessarily correcting you, but like I said, I just want to give a full scope. He wasn't living with me
Oh,
at
okay.
the when he got out of juvenile hall. There were so many things that were going on. It was not a good place for him to be here. So he was in a where do they go? Like a halfway house type of
Corporate living.
situation.
Yeah. Okay. Hmm.
But then he could not stay there
Right.
because he would not follow the rules there. And that
Right.
was part of the reason why he didn't come straight home, because it was like, I need you to come home and follow the rules.
Right.
And are you going to do that? So go here first. You follow the rules here for 6 months to a year. Then we'll work on you coming home, or we'll get you in a space and place to where it might not even be come home. You get your own place, you get your own apartment. Because mind you, he's 18 at this
Right.
point in time. So he was on the streets.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's another reason why
Mm.
I know that there's peace now that was not there before.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was on, going from place to place,
Hmm.
here to there.
Yeah.
And he actually came and visited me 3 or 4 days prior to what happened. And he's like, he just popped up and, hey, what do what's going on? And what are you doing? And, we're having a conversation. And I was telling him, are you going to listen now? Are you going to start doing
Hmm.
these things? Because if you don't, I'm
Hmm.
going to get one of two phone calls. I'm going to get a phone call that you're locked up or in jail, or that you've passed away.
Mm.
3 or 4 days later, I got the phone call.
Wow.
And yeah, they found him, they found his body in a parking lot. So to know that you're in a parking lot in the middle of the night doing drugs, you were
Mm.
in a lot of pain. You
Right.
were in a very, very, very bad place.
Yeah.
And I only wanted to add that just to say that, like with my statement, I know you didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
I know you didn't want to do it, so that you don't have to spend another moment doing any of that for that to be over.
Yeah. That's
That if that's how it has to be, I can 100%. I can accept that.
yeah.
I can be at peace with that.
Hmm.
To know that that's where it was at and that's what was going on, for that to be over, I'm
Hmm.
okay with that.
Yeah. Whew. I want to share one of the photos you gave me of your son. Um, and the audience, just want to throw this in here. This is a beautiful, I mean, yes, he definitely is your twin. Um, but I think this should serve as a point of revelation. And thank you for your trust, your openness, your vulnerability in sharing your story, your truth. For parents and family members who are rearing and assisting in raising children, and young people, young boys, young girls in this day and age, let this be a place, a testament of you can do all that you can. And the ending might not go as we desire, but it's okay. I love what William said earlier. We have to ask God to show us how to raise these children. We don't have the blueprint, but he does. And so just looking at the life that you and your son have, and you were able to experience that and share that with us on tonight, I just want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I know there's a book in you. So I'll be waiting for that to happen. I'll be looking for more. information coming down from you, maybe even doing some live talks and live course and sharing, because you have, like, this is a ministry for you, because your journey, when you mentioned about the void, I kept thinking about that saying, we all have a God-sized void in our hearts that only he can fill, and sometimes it takes a lifetime for us to recognize that. But we're grateful to God for the 18 years that the
Right.
Lord blessed you to have with your son. We're grateful for the lessons that he's yet teaching you posthumously, in this walk of life that you're on. And so I just want to say thank you, Jonathan. I had no idea that this was the first time you're sharing this. And so I'm honored, I'm humbled, and I'm thankful that you trusted us here at Be Healed Web Show to do this.
I just quickly, because you're wrapping up, right? That's a wrap up. I just want to quickly say, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you for giving me the opportunity, and thank you for having me. And I also want to say thank you because I see the family and the friends on Facebook that are in the comments, and I just want to say that everyone's support and everybody's love,
Yeah.
I appreciate it, and I love you all. And I'm looking at it, so I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to take all of these people out to dinner. But I'm seeing, no, I'm seeing people from high school. I'm seeing family members. I'm seeing people from elementary school. So I just want to say I love you all. I appreciate you all. Thank you, Camille, and thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're always welcome here. If you want to, like, hey, sis, I want to talk about something
We
else.
need a part two. Part two.
Let me, because here's the thing. Um, just to give a little context on how Power of Vulnerability even started. When I started the show last year in June, somewhere someone thought, people thought that Be Healed Web Show was just for ladies. And I'm like, what? I had my dad on here. I had why would it just be for women? No, it's for everyone. And then I thought about it. I said, wait a minute. What if I just did a section and just talked to men? All guests were just men. And when I put the call out and they began to say yes, and this was already a stigma that was broken for me, that men don't share, men won't talk, men won't open up. That stigma has been completely destroyed with me. I no longer think like that. I'm like, oh no, you just have to ask the right question and give them a time frame, and they'll be here. And last year was great. Had numerous men on from various walks of life. They emoted, they shared, they were vulnerable, healing took place. And this season, and I'm excited. I don't know who else, and I know all of my other guests coming, but I don't know what all they're going to share. But this season too has been phenomenal. And I thank you, because so many times people feel that life has to have a happy ending. Happy endings are very subjective. It's all on how you see it.
Perspective. Yeah.
Perspective, very, very much so. It's how you see it, how you interpret it. And this, even though you say it wasn't a happy ending of what the fairy tale ending that we would,
Right.
I'm seeing in the comments, he's home,
Right.
uh, he's free, you know, and that's what we look for. So I'm grateful, I'm thankful to you. So thank you all for tuning in on tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you in the comments. I'm not closing out till I recognize everybody's comments. So and as I'm wrapping up, I am going to share with you all next week's guest. We have Mark Harrison. He's going to be sharing his story, and look for posts there. Follow me on Facebook, as well as I'm on Instagram underneath Camille R. Perry, but follow me definitely on YouTube. For those of you that might be at the channel right now, hit subscribe, and then you can actually go back and see previous interviews from different ones. And so I'm excited. I'm grateful. I'm thankful. I cannot click fast enough. But Nicole said, "You are an amazing. You are so amazing, John. Your journey of healing is so powerful. Your advice um, that I am human first before mom is so powerful. So you already blessing them with nuggets. Your family's on."
She's dope. She's dope. She does therapy and
Mhm.
counseling and all of that for a living. I went to high school with her. Nicola's dope. She reached out to me. I saw her right after it happened. She's like, "You need to talk to me. Call me. This is what I do." And so just hit me up. You wanna unload on me, all of that.
No,
So I just had to throw that out there too. But I'm sorry. Yeah,
absolutely.
go ahead, wrap up. Sorry.
No, look, I'm a preacher's kid, so we get like three rappers before we close. So
The
we're good.
music about to come on in a
You
couple of seconds.
You've been tuning in. You've been tuning in. You know how this works. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. But great understanding, great teaching on that you shared on tonight. And with that being said, I hope you all will tune in next week. Same Be Healed time, same Be Healed channel. I'm excited for it as we're going through week 3 of Power of Vulnerability with Mark Harrison. So until next time, may God bless you. May his face continue to shine upon you and give you strength. May he continue to walk with you in your coming and going. And even as you rest in slumber and sleep, and when you rise in the morning, may he continue to love on you with his everlasting love. And may you witness his grace and his mercy profoundly in your life. Until next time, be blessed and be healed. We'll see you. Good night.